Welcome to the Podkey summary of Xcode, Agents, and You from WWDC 2026. This one is really about Xcode turning AI help from a chat window into something that feels built into the actual development loop. The big themes are project-wide understanding, tighter control over planning and edits, and a surprisingly practical system for checking its own work with docs, builds, tests, previews, and even localization and accessibility tasks running in parallel. What stands out is how much of this is about reducing the annoying parts of software work, getting oriented in a strange code base, keeping documentation current, and making sure generated code doesn't just look clever for 5 seconds and then fail to compile. One of the most useful pieces here is agent-driven project exploration. Instead of staring at an unfamiliar Xcode project and doing that slow archaeological dig through folders, the agent can scan the whole thing, source files, build settings, and whatever you currently have selected. From that, it can generate a walkthrough of the app's data models, view hierarchy, and how data moves through the system. That matters because understanding a codebase is usually the expensive part. Writing one file is easy. Figuring out what not to break is the hard part. And the walkthrough isn't just a wall of explanation. It can include clickable links that jump straight to the reference files, so you can move from the high-level map to the exact implementation without leaving the conversation pane. There's also a plan mode, and honestly, this feels like a healthy correction to the whole just prompt and pray style of coding. The developer stays in the architect role and spells out the feature, the device-specific concerns, the UI expectations, all of that, before code gets generated. It shows up as an interactive markdown discussion, so the plan is editable and easy to refine instead of feeling locked in after one prompt. Then there are queued messages, which is a small feature with a big quality-of-life payoff. While the agent is still working through one step, you can add another requirement or ask a clarifying question, so the feedback loop stays tight, instead of making you wait around for each turn to finish, like you're taking a number at the deli counter. A very sensible piece of this is Apple Document Search. If you ask about a Swift UI or Swift Data API, the agent doesn't just lean on whatever the model happened to know at training time. Xcode can pull in the latest Apple documentation directly into the agent's context. That's important because platform APIs move, new capabilities show up, old assumptions go stale, and nothing is more confidence-shaking than an AI confidently recommending yesterday's answer. So this is basically a way to ground the agent in current framework docs, especially when APIs have changed between Xcode releases. The conversation view is organized around artifacts, and that's another strong idea. Xcode separates the transcript from the outputs, files, edits, previews, test results. That means you can focus on what was actually produced instead of scrolling through a long chat trying to reconstruct what changed. Each code change, new file, or rendered preview shows up as an artifact, and there's a diff view right there, so you can inspect exactly what the agent touched before you accept it. That feels much closer to how developers actually review work. You want receipts. The edit controls also get more specific with inline annotations. You can attach an image sketch or a free-form drawing to the conversation, then pin an annotation directly to a line of source code and say, in effect, change this part right here. The example is visual tuning, like adjusting a chart animation or swapping a color. But the bigger point is precision, because the annotation includes the nearby code as context. The requested change is tightly scoped, which should make the agent's edits more accurate and less likely to wander off into places nobody asked it to touch. That precision shows up nicely in the Swift charts workflow too. A developer can ask for multiple chart styles using synthetic workout data, and Xcode immediately renders live previews for each one. So instead of debating a chart in the abstract, you can just look at the options and see that the volume over time line chart is the one that actually works best. There's also a sketch to UI flow, where a hand-drawn idea from an iPad gets fed into the conversation, translated into Swift charts code, and rendered back as live previews. That's a pretty compelling loop because it turns vague visual intent into something concrete in seconds. And previews give you fast feedback before anybody gets too emotionally attached to the wrong chart. Another standout is orchestrated localization and accessibility. If you give Xcode a high-level goal, like localize the app into Filipino, it can discover the right translation tools and spin up subagents to find and translate user-facing strings, updating the strings catalog along the way. At the same time, a separate workflow can add voiceover labels and accessibility identifiers to interactive elements. The interesting part isn't just that both jobs get done, it's that multiple agents can run concurrently on complementary tasks while the developer watches progress instead of babysitting each step manually. That makes the whole thing feel less like a single assistant and more like a coordinated set of helpers working across the project. There's also a documentation angle that could quietly save teams a lot of pain. After exploring a project, the agent can generate architecture documents and add them as project files, effectively creating a built-in knowledge base. Then, as the agent keeps modifying code later, that documentation stays updated automatically so it doesn't drift away from reality. That's a big deal for onboarding because fresh team members get something better than tribal knowledge and half-remembered Slack threads. And for everyone else, it means the docs have a fighting chance of matching the app that actually ships. Finally, the agent isn't just generating code and walking away with a hopeful thumbs up. After making changes, it can trigger Xcode's build system, take the compile errors that come back, and iterate until the build succeeds. That creates a self-correcting loop, which is exactly what you want if AI is going to be involved in real development work rather than demo theater. It also writes unit tests for new Swift data models, runs them, and in this case, confirms that all 12 new test cases pass. That doesn't replace human review, but it does mean the agent is doing some of the basic grown-up chores before handing work back to the developer. Taken together, this is less about magic code generation and more about giving developers a faster, clearer workflow with better context and better checks. If that holds up in daily use, the real win is probably not that the agent can write code. It's that it can help teams understand, verify, and maintain what they're building without making the whole process feel heavier. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.